Okay. We are called back to order to continue and complete our budget discussion. And we were down to the additional funding priorities. And I would ask if there are any other questions or comments on the professional learning. That was the last item we discussed. Yes.
I have a comment, but I'm going to relate it when we come to the end of the
Professional
open
development,
campus.
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I have a comment, but I'd like to have a mini soliloquy that will come when we finish the open campus.
Okay,
And I'll just tie professional development in with it.
okay. Preschool early learning, I think, well, actually, we talked about that as well. I'm losing ground here. Okay, so open campus. Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a soliloquy. I'll wait until other folks have asked their questions.
You're on.
All right. What I'm going to talk to, I've given school board members and Dr. King a copy of this book, I Got Schooled. It came to my attention a couple of months ago. I've read it, and it's outstanding. The copy that I gave, I'm going to relate to our budget priorities and to the DeJong Richter report, but I'm also then going to relate it to our transformational initiative, part of which is the Open Campus Academy. Dr. Simmons, true? We have had to delay this, but we now have the possibility of having one of the most exciting transformational initiatives elements that I've ever seen. Remember, I was Virginia's first dropout prevention coordinator, first in the whole state's history. And we're getting ready to do something that the person who was my boss, Secretary of Education, you know who, advocated for. So this is going to be exciting. So that is part of a continuation of the Transformation Initiative. This article has 5 elements that it talks about. This is the greatest synthesis in my 30 years of analyzing educational research I've seen. It was highlighted in the National School Boards Association on the front page of their recent magazine. I read it a couple of months ago, and it's just exciting. It goes to 5 elements, all of which are in the budget we've just been talking about and are related to what we've done with the DeJong Richter. Teachers, instructional leaders or principals, data-driven instructional decisions, small schools, and more. So the last item, open campus, as it relates to professional development and as it relates to next year's budget, I go back to the first conversation we had when Dr. King first threw out the idea of a total transformational initiative. It was built around one word, as I understood it, more. More. And so I've already told Dr. King I'm going to ask him these questions. He knows they're coming. We wanted more time, and that more time was related to applying to the state to give us the right to open schools before Labor Day. I'll come back to that. But we also wanted more parental involvement. One was parental compacts, and Dr. King, we're still going to pursue that as part of the transformational initiative. That's important, getting parents on board. We also wanted more partners, critical partners for each of these schools. And we're still going to pursue that. We're still pursuing that. Nothing has changed. Themes may change slightly based on what the DeJong Richter, as we align elementary, middle, and high, so we don't know how that's going to stack up. But the whole idea of having a focused theme is still continuing as. Now, let's just say we've also had at least one school who has done outstanding in their improvement process, true, a middle school, Ruffner, and the state has even said, boy, they're going well. Professional development has been the key, and remember, data-driven instructional decisions. I see that as what we're emphasizing. So all of these elements of more partners in the community, more parental involvement, more emphasis on theme-driven or data-driven decision-making are all continuing. The one element that, unfortunately, the Virginia General Assembly does not find a way to allow individual school systems to give more time, unfortunately. We had planned to take advantage of legislation who was just in the beginning. It was called Conversion Charter Initiatives. Conversion Charter Initiatives. They were never charter schools. They were always our teachers, our budgets, and our buildings. Correct, Dr. King? So there was never a charter school. These were all schools. But under the conversion charter initiatives, we were intending to have more time, and unfortunately, the state of Virginia in its legislative process has not seen well to give us that time. That doesn't mean we're not going to, in our master planning, look at ways for more time. And, in fact, with pre-K 4, we're going after more time in a huge way. So the reason why I say this is that our next year's initiative, under professional development in several areas, the transformational initiative is alive and well and progressing. So when I came back from being out of town and I read this article, I'm old, so cool used to mean chilly, and then it became something good. And bad used to mean not good, but now it's good. So I don't know what the verb ditch means, but I can tell you one thing. The people that were calling me and confronting me, I kept telling them, we're moving well. Ruffner Middle School is doing better. We're going to do more time, more attention, more partners, more everything at all these schools because we know we have to. Poverty came, and it wasn't our fault. The state of Virginia and the federal government shifted costs to us and deserted us in the budgets. City helped take up this gap, and we're asking them to take up more. But we're doing more. And so this year's budget that we're proposing is designed to do a great deal more. And I want to make sure that our citizens know we're not departing from anything. We're not running from anything. We're intending to do a whole lot more, and it will be noteworthy. It may take 2 years for the open campus to bear fruit. It hasn't taken 2 years for our efforts at Ruffner to bear fruit. We may know this spring, but it may take 2 or 3 more years for all the more to take place. But this year's budget, as I see it, addresses the critical elements that this gentleman, this movie maker, has said, and it's the best synthesis of educational research I've seen in my 30 years of reading educational research. And it's written in a very sensible way, so I'm going to lend this book to Dr. King. I've given some copies to Dr. Charbonnet of this article. But I just want to know this budget is focused on the transformational initiative. And I want everybody to know that, and all those people paying attention to me because of one word, ditch, maybe I'm missing it. Maybe it means something a whole lot better than I thought. I guess for now, the best thing for me to do is forget it.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Rodney.
You would think that by now I would learn not to follow Dr. Stewart. So I don't have anything as eloquent as that. But as we are winding down, I just want to ask us to give some thoughts to something, or ask Dr. King to give some thoughts as we come back for next week. We talk about, asking for what we need and asking for what we want. In one of the versions of documents I had sent, and I was looking at what we have in the additional funding priority and what we have in the expenditure-based budget, I was interpreting the items that we had in the expenditure-based budget as items that we say that we need, and the items that we were placing in the additional funding priorities as items we say that we want. I want to make sure in terms of need that for the technology and infrastructure support, we still hear concerns about some schools not having the infrastructure they need to support testing, SchoolNet, and all these other programs that we have out there. So if there's anything in the additional funding priorities that I just want to make sure that in our expenditure-based budget, that from a technology and infrastructure support perspective, we are addressing that need, the need to be able to give the teachers the support that they need and the students the support that they need to do the testing. So I'm going to assume that that's the case, and if not, yes, sir.
If I'm following you, the additional funding priority tier 2, where you see technology and infrastructure, of course, is not reflected in the expenditure-based budget. That's
Right.
what that's
Personnel-wise, right.
Right. So that technology infrastructure piece that would allow us to ramp things up to the point that we need to support our schools and our staff and children, that's a need down where you see that. I think we're saying the same thing, but that's what you're asking.
Right, but if there's, of the 22, I guess it's FTEs that are identified.
Okay.
If we're saying that all 22 of those are needed for the base level of support for our schools to have the teachers and staff and students to have what they need in order to be successful. If all 22 fall in that category, I just want to make sure we're communicating that. If it's 5 of them that we really need to get everybody at a base level, and 17 I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Also with the open campus, so I was hearing that we have an absolute need to get over age for grade children in a place where they can be successful, and to the extent that some of them may be causing challenges for other students, that we need to get them in a good place. I know that the open campus model that we have now is more than that. So if there's a component of the open campus that is critical right now in terms of over age for grade, then in my mind, I would see that as a need. And the other piece is what we want to do because we know we have these other issues that we're trying to address.
Let me just jump in. I don't know if we ever used those two words, need versus want. I think we would all agree that these additional funding priorities are all needs, and any of them could easily be placed in the expenditure-based budget.
Right, but it's almost like when you were leading us through the conversation of what do you want to restore, what do you want to,
Right.
whatever the 3 categories were.
Right.
So when you look at the base budget,
Mm-hmm.
Restoring the student data support is, in my mind, trying to get us back to 0. The ITR positions are trying to get us back to 0.
Mm-hmm.
The nurses is something that we have to do because the structure is changing.
Right.
So in terms of communicating our goal of trying to get back to 0, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
As we try to make the case to the public and to the council, I just want to make sure that we're communicating. If professional development is something that is showing up over and over in academic reviews, something that Dr. King has talked about from day one,
Right.
that we not put it in a position of being viewed as an extra. Maybe I should say a necessity. I don't know what other terminology to use, but we added the compensation in the expenditure-based budget because we recognized that it needed to be, it's an essential in order for us to, based upon everything that Dr. King said earlier. And I just want to make sure that in these additional funding priorities that we are clear that if there's anything in there that also should be considered paramount and critical to giving Dr. King and his team what they need in order to move us to the next level, that if there's anything in there that needs to be separated out, that we look at that.
When I found a budget document, it would not be categorized this way.
Yeah.
It's only,
Right. I mean, it's all part of the 321, but in terms of this one-page presentation, it has been segregated so the
Right.
board could have some very detailed conversation around
Right.
it as related to those 3 priorities or tiers,
right,
maintain, expand,
Right.
and new initiatives.
right, exactly. Okay. Any other thoughts there? Yes.
What I am just pleased to see is that I do believe that this is aligned strategically, which I know we're striving for from the very beginning. We show that we have a strategic plan that's guiding us so that we can smartly put together a budget that does align back to the strategic plan. And I do think it sets us on a good track for the 5-year budget forecast as well. So I just kind of want to bring us back to center on that. This is not anything that is away from our strategic direction. So for that, I'm just very thankful, and I wanted everyone to be just cognizant of where we still are.
Right, right. Thank you. So are we clear on open campus? Okay. So, of course, at the very bottom, we have simply the summary of the revenue expenditures and the budget deficit and the gap. The other matters that we did not include that we talked about at the very beginning was the matter of CTE and where we would place that into the budget and how much. We talked about 3 levels of planning. One, simply focusing on communication and marketing and programmatic focus, which would not be very costly for fiscal year 15. The other level was, of course, a schematic or rendering that could come in at about $1.2 million or actual A&E, which I certainly don't think we're ready for quite yet. But I would like us to talk a little bit more about how much we feel we need to commit to planning this year. And those are the 3 areas that we've already discussed, the 3 options, Courtney, and this one.
Of the first and the second option, which one gets us to the point where we can begin to build a strategic approach to aligning with community partners that would support the effort? How much do we need to share and be transparent about that it's not just words on a page, but it's something we can demonstrate to the community, demonstrate the need, and enable for those to get behind the effort financially? I don't have the answer, that's merely a question.
I think the first one gets us there. I mean, I think developing a very, and of course, marketing is certainly not my area, but I certainly have some basic understanding of it. And so you design your communications for your audience. And so there's one form of communication we would design for, parents and students and what have you, and another form of communication or that we would design for businesses and potential partners that would help them understand return on investment, how important this is to the city and to the region, the impact it could have not only on educating our students, but how it could impact our city as we educate, as our children are graduating with industry-level certifications, all of them that would attend that school, as well as college-ready. And so I think we could build a communication vehicle that would put us right in a place to begin pursuing funding from a good deal of potential funding partners.
I understand your idea and your concept of promotion and marketing and continuing the planning, but a picture says 1,000 words. And coming up with a schematic is what's really going to drive this, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts? Yes. Mark?
We're going to have a little chat tonight about the DeJohn Griffith report. And I know hopefully come May 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, we'll turn to master planning.
No, that's next Wednesday.
Oh, next Wednesday. So
Right.
DeJohn, not going, okay. I hesitate to make any final decisions until we know what our budget really is.
Sure.
The city will tell us what they can do from this. By the way, I'm hoping that as we talk about strategy for presenting to the city, I'm favorable to presenting first what Dr. King presented to us on the 19th. He came to us with a bare bones presentation. I would want them to see that that's where we began. But we've added things. We've added things based on a great deal of information, and we must take a look at what we're going to do the next 4 years, combining CIP with annual operating budget. But I don't think we can make any final decisions until we see May 1st what it is we're working with. But if we are asked to prioritize, I believe that we have to prioritize communication. But first part of the communication, Dr. Houston, in my opinion, is listening. We already have a recommendation for DeJohn Richter. So it's out there. Like Tracy said, they've done some hard jobs. They put it out there. We have to decide whether that's what we're going to do, whether it's early on, whether it's further down. But I think we've got to listen a lot more to the community on this. So I don't think that, I certainly would agree. I'd like to move to the design phase immediately. But I think first we have to listen, and then we have to say this is what we're hearing and this is what we're thinking. And we have to have a lot of communication with the city on this.
Now, remember, we're having this conversation because you mentioned, and I think one or two others, the importance of having a line item in the budget
Yes, sir.
for CTE.
And I thank Dr. King and everyone for that.
But it's not in there. I
I know
mean,
it.
right now it's just on that supplemental page.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is that if we want to insert a line item in the actual fiscal year 2015 budget.
Right.
Then we need to decide, how much we want to designate and for what purpose. And those three levels are in my thinking, the three options that we would have for including a line item in
My
fiscal
final
year
statement on
15 budget.
CTE is, I see these as bookends
Mhm.
for the Norfolk Public Schools Reimagined. The preschool, 4-year-old initiative, these are early. This is at the back end
Sure.
of learning, transferring into higher learning, dual enrollments and everything else. This is exciting. This is the bookends for me for Norfolk Public Schools Reimagined.
Right.
And I could go with anything, but I think we got to be in somewhere.
No other than, Quinn?
Actually, go ahead, because I can't remember what I was going to say. I think for the sake of next Wednesday, I would support where Brad's going, pictures 1,000 words. If we need to put the 1.2 million in now, maybe it later during our budget discussions with the city becomes a supplemental one-time. May not fall into our operational, it may be CIP. But I think Brad has a good point, that it's got to be something that people can really
Tangible.
put their hands around and
Yeah.
it's tangible.
Well,
Right, we've been talking about it a long time.
Sure, and I respect that, but I don't think it should be either or. I don't think you provide a picture, without a clearly.
Oh, you've got to, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't think you leave out communication.
No.
And
No.
we just have this nice glossy, rendering
No.
of what the school would look like without a very well and strategically designed communication piece that says to the public, and something that's easy and quick to read, that user-friendly for people who are not in education, not a lot of educational jargon, but if I'm a parent and you're trying to sell me CTE and you're gonna, take Lake Taylor High School as we know it now and turn it into this, and so I'd like to know as a parent exactly where we're going with this. What is this? How will I benefit from it, or my, children benefit from it? How will our city benefit from it? So I think in addition to that, if we go with the rendering piece, we have to design a strong communication effort to really, really get total community buy-in and support.
I agree, and I think we have a lot of the data already gathered with the planning that we've done, that the team has already presented. I think already has been some community conversations in that planning stages, so it's not like this is the first time this is going to be going around, but if we can take the information that we have and build upon that and have a strong schematic, I think then we can sell that to the community and to the business partners that are going to be help funding that.
Get some clarity, because I've heard the discussion around adding some amount of money and requesting it as part of a CIP request, and I'm hearing some conversation about adding it to the operational budget. Which, can you narrow it down, what specifically, because if it's on the CIP, my reaction is one way. If it's to the operational, my reaction is going to be different. So I just want to get some clarity on
Sure.
what we're talking about.
Sure. What I've heard from the board is the importance of having a line item in the fiscal year 15 budget related to CTE. That's what I've heard from among our team. Where we put it, whether it's in the operating budget or in the CIP, hadn't been determined, and I'm certainly open for feedback on.
I was speaking about the operating budget and then later in the CIP,
Right.
because we got to have that conversation after
Sure.
May.
I think from a request perspective, well, let me back up. As I said earlier, practice would say it should be funded through the CIP process. But if the board wants to have it as part of an official request, then it probably needs to, at this point, go through the operating budget, because we don't necessarily present an official school board-approved capital improvement plan to the city council for funding consideration. So if we're going to ask for, or identify this need and ask for funding for it, The official way to request, I guess, I would say, based on past practices, through the operating. Maybe as a unique need that we're asking that the council consider for funding. Now, if they were to say, yes, we will fund that particular item or a portion of it, but we have to account for it in the CIP, then that will be clarified through the approval and the appropriation process. But in order to facilitate an official request, I think the only mechanism we have right now is through the operating budget, because again, I'm repeating myself, but again, we don't have an official capital improvement plan that we adopt here and present to the council for separate funding consideration.
Right.
So from a process standpoint, that's probably how it would have to flow.
Going back to what I was saying earlier in terms of what we have for demonstration purposes versus what we send over to city council, I'm supportive of the CTE approach, but it makes me a little nervous if we send over to the council an operating budget that has in it professional development, preschool early learning, open campus, and beginning of design and planning for CTE, and it gives the impression that we're saying that all are equal in terms of priority. My feeling is based upon where Dr. King has brought us thus far and what the academic review and challenges are showing us, academics, the technology infrastructure to support academics, the staffing infrastructure to support gifted in research, those things in my mind have to scream out as these are the big critical asks that we're saying are important for us to move the district forward academically. If it's designs for the CTE, we consider it a partnership, and we're putting it there so you can see that we're reaching out to you to try to form this partnership. But it would be concerning to me if it's just like a buffet and it somehow gives the impression that each meal is of equal value. I mean, I think we have to scream out that our professional development, our overreach for grade, our support for our teachers and staff, and our support for the research and data that we need to make all of this valid has got to scream out in whatever presentation that we give. At least that's my feeling. I yield to Dr. King, but that CT high school is great and it's sexy. When you try to explain professional development, it isn't. And so I just wouldn't want to set up this scenario where, I struggle with trying to understand it. I spend 50 hours here trying to get it. And I just want to make sure that somehow we at least elevate that our number one priority is the academics for our children that we currently have. And, the preschool is great and the CTE is great and many of these other things that we're considering are great, but we want them to recognize what we feel we need to close with the core first.
Right. Point received. Okay. Our next steps. Right now, everything that was presented to us by the administration stays as it was as it was presented at this point. We meet again on next Wednesday, and here are our next steps. We will get the report next Wednesday on additional reduction strategies identified by the administration. We will take a look at the final version of our school board budget to include some information regarding the clerk's position that I know you are currently having researched and how it impacts the budget. And then we would simply take a look at any other items that surface as we continue to discuss this matter over the next week. Right now, and as much as I hate this term, right now it is what it is. And Yes, so next week, we have 2.5 hours dedicated to our budget discussion, and then an hour dedicated to the Young Richter recommendation, with more details from the superintendent's recommendation based on the educational planning study that we received last week. Okay, any final questions or comments on the budget?
Thank you. I really thank Dr. King and his colleagues for hearing the things that I personally thought. I really thank my colleagues for listening to them as a whole. And I feel that this process has gone as good as it could be, and I just hope that next year we're 6 months ahead of time with everything, all the pieces coming together very early. But I'm very grateful for being part of this, and very grateful for thinking that my ideas have been heard by the governance team, and particularly by Dr. King and his staff.
Others? This is certainly one of the most important things we do as a governance team, and certainly among the most challenging as well. And when we look at this $10 million that have been found already, nearly $11 million in expenditure reductions and balancing strategies, I think we have to also put that in the context of what the last 5 years has been like in terms of reductions. So it's not to be taken lightly, even though I know we're looking for additional reductions, so that we are as efficient as we can be with the resources that we have, and certainly with the resources that we will be requesting. Having said that, I'd like us to take a look quickly at the upcoming agenda. You just received hard copies, and I would only bring our attention to next Wednesday, particularly. There has been a student appeal hearing request that has kind of been tabled a couple of months because of the family's inability to get it on the requested dates. It is still scheduled for, or scheduled once again for next Wednesday. And an additional appeal request has come in as well. Janelle provided us with good pertinent information regarding the offense date, suspension term, and the current status of the student. So here's what we are requesting. If we could have these appeal hearings scheduled at 11 and 12 for next week, if we have 4 of us, at least 4 of us that could be in place at 11 for 11 and 12, then we could have those hearings, take care of those appeals, and then at 1 p.m. we would have our superintendent's mid-year evaluation review, and then at 2 p.m. move into our regular closed session for personnel and student support matters, and then on into our open informative session. So, open informal session. So are there 4 of
I
us?
can be available, and our colleagues that work full-time,
Yeah.
on their behalf, I'd like to be one of the 4.
Thank you, on my behalf, thank you. No, I can be here at 11 as well. Do we have, Ed? Thank you. Ed, have you joined Warren in retirement? Is that what happened?
11 o'clock, is that when I need to be here? Is it?
I rescind that.
So you can't be here?
I'm gonna be here.
All right, one more. Do we have one additional board member that can be here at 11?
I originally couldn't be here until 2, so now that we've shifted everything up 1 hour, I'm definitely not gonna be able to be here at 11.
Okay, so 2, 3.
Originally, we had planned for 2 o'clock to start, and then we had the appeal, which bumped us to 1 o'clock.
Right.
So I will not be able to be here. I'll try to do the 1 o'clock, but I cannot make any promises at this point.
Okay,
I'll do the 11.
okay, all right.
Dr. Houston, what usually gets me here early is Miss Banks's menu.
Yeah,
Could I negotiate with? All right, thank you.
yeah, greens.
Yeah, there it is. I'm waiting.
Okay, so I'm sorry if there's a mix. You can try for one, you think, maybe?
Well, one is different than what we had originally originally, I mean, one was what we had planned to be here for the hearing to begin with, correct?
The additional hearing is what kind of,
Right.
or we would have to put
And now
the
1
folks off
o'clock, we're
another
gonna do
month.
the evaluation, which is very critical for us to be
Right,
here, so,
right.
I mean, I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Okay, and then, of course, as I mentioned, for the informal agenda, just 2 items, the informal agenda, the budget planning, and the educational planning recommendations. Yes. Yes,
You got your 4.
we have 4, yes. If you like to come, I'd be happy to.
I was gonna broker a deal, but since you already have your 4th, I'll wait.
Not sure what you were going to use as leverage, so I won't ask. Let's see. We have an agenda planning meeting tomorrow morning, and so for the formal session, as you see right now, we only have the financial report, so we will be completing the planning for that session tomorrow morning. Okay, questions, comments? Then, if needed, we have a placeholder, of course, on the 26th, 2 weeks from today, to finalize the budget, of course, that's due to council by April the 1st.
There was one item that I brought up last time that seemed to be timely because of a news break on the PPEA. I had requested and been getting a lot of support from the administration on having a school board member attend future PPEA meetings. And I know that Dr. Robinson and I are meeting with Rex tomorrow on the construction committee. I had said that I would be pleased to attend the first ones or whatever. I would like some time for the school board to process, if they wish that to be the case. I certainly will volunteer to attend any of them, but I don't need to be the only one attending. And I wondered if there'd be some time for us to talk about as a board, if that's a board wish,
Right.
to have a board member as part of that. Because I just think we need to know everything that's going on. And I was informed by the newspaper, and I was grateful to be informed by the newspaper, but I would like to be informed as much as the board can be informed so that we can speak to the community, because that's going to be a
Right.
very exciting, that is a very exciting thing. So I just would like some time for the school board to process whether they wish to have someone at those meetings, and if so, who they would like there or who among the folks.
And so just for a point of clarity, for the PPEA part of it, for that part of it, it would
Right.
be inappropriate for a board member or a councilman to be as a part of that particular part of the process. Now, once that's finalized and we move into planning and management
Right.
and oversight,
That's fine,
right,
because I think that's happening very soon, isn't it?
I anticipate, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. I just want to make
Right.
sure that board members can speak well about it.
Right.
I love learning about things every day in all the
Right.
newspapers I read, but I would like it if we.
And so you placed that before us. It won't take 2 minutes. Just, are we in support of that request? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be me. I love meetings, and I would be happy to share this meeting with
Well,
anyone.
they don't have greens at those meetings, I can tell you that.
Dr. Simmons is going to inform me, but I'd be happy to share this with anyone.
Okay?
And
Yes.
can I just ask, at what meeting forthcoming will we get a good update of the transformation initiative? So that the community is well aware of the fact that it is ongoing and moving forward under the transformation.
It's our package that will be presented to the board that relates to the study. Is a total package, capsule, and transformation all at the same time.
Very good.
So it's all inclusive.
Which meeting?
It's next
The
week?
next,
Next work session?
No.
on
No, he's
the,
speaking of next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday at the
Next
Wednesday.
formal meeting?
Yes.
Informal session when he does the educational planning study recommendation.
Oh, okay. All right, I didn't realize that was inclusive. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay. This afternoon, I know the region, what's the number?
Tidewater region?
Tidewater region. I know it's numbered, that number, like Region 5 or.
Oh, I have no idea what
Yeah.
the number is. It's called Tidewater.
I believe that begins at
5:30.
5:30 in Williamsburg. I won't be able to make that meeting. How many planning? Okay. And I know we have to have, okay.
I'm gonna travel too. Ms. Jordan, what's the menu?
Can't tell you, but the high school is a beautiful high school.
All right.
Which high school is it?
War Hill in Williamsburg, James City County, Williamsburg.
War Hill, I
I
never
think
heard
that's
of
what
that.
it's.
Dr. Houston,
Has
one of our colleagues,
revolutionary
Dr.
roots.
King's colleagues, knows a lot about this facility.
Yeah, so you can certainly recommend.
Yeah, I had a lot to do with this facility.
Give me directions.
It's.
199 Lightfoot.
Yep, there you go.
60,
That's pretty good.
Yep.
and you're there. It's actually a high school, comprehensive high school that was designed for, at that time, career pathways related to technology, healthcare, and two others. It kind of lose me right now, but we designed that facility, and it's actually co-located with Thomas Nelson Community College.
Mhm.
And at the time, we did the infrastructure for that co-located facility through PPEA. So it's a great school. It's a great school.
I just walked through the front door this morning and was just
Yeah.
blown away, so I think it'd be good for everybody who can make it to
Right.
see it.
Mhm.
But Mr. Chair, while we're on the VSBA region, we have the hot topic that's coming up
Yes.
on April 26th.
Mhm.
And, it's being hosted here in Norfolk.
Mhm.
And so far, we don't have anybody from Norfolk registered. So can we try to get a feel for that push so that VSBA can get a good count so that we can try to make sure
What's the
that.
date?
It's April the 26th.
The 28th.
28th?
Yeah, and actually, I have that. I do plan to attend, I don't know where, but Janelle went.
Well,
Same here.
yeah, I'm just trying to say we need to
Okay.
get a count in. And, it's not just board, but any essential staff that,
Mr.
Yes.
Jordan, what time should we be there in your opinion?
It starts like at 8 or 9.
yes.
Yeah,
it's-
no.
I'm
9
available
a.m.
and it's
start
already
time.
on my calendar, so I'm there.
I think we just need to communicate with Janelle about
Right.
And part of
registering us.
the
Are
focus
you
is.
attending?
Yes.
Now, you know, we have the board, governance,
Training.
development the very next day as well.
Right.
And then we also have something on that Friday, don't we?
No, that's been
Something
pulled.
every day.
Right, no, that Friday would have been the, board governance training day.
Oh, but we're not doing
They
that.
moved to that Tuesday.
Mr. Jordan, I'm there.
And part of the focus is going to be on schools in challenged environments, high poverty schools and so forth. So it kind of fits right along with what we've been discussing.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, also, this Friday, we still have the Board Docs Pro
Yes,
presentation.
yes,
3 o'clock, is that right?
that's right, thank you, because I failed to mention that. Right, that is at,
3 o'clock, right?
is it, yes, it is at 3.
Do we want to tell Ms. Banks just arrived back? Do we want to tell her who's coming to the,
Yes, Janelle, for the hot topics, it'd be easier to say who won't be able to make it. So everybody else will be there except,
I'm there.
okay?
And then the following day is your board training.
Right. And are we at the,
At the
Town bank?
Yes.
okay? All right, anything else for the good of the order?
Thank you.
Do we want to start looking at dates in May for a master planning?
Oh, yeah.
Meeting?
Friday, May 2nd?
Yeah, we did have May 2nd down, tentatively.
I'm out of this country, I'm out of the state.
I'm not gonna be there.
Let's do it a different day.
Okay,
May 2nd is not a good day.
okay, so can we do it next Wednesday, or do we want to do it right now?
Meaning schedule it next Wednesday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we can schedule.
Let's schedule it next Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's everybody look at your calendar.
And- Is that your date?
Just saying, it has to be before May 21st.
When is your sister due?
Y'all are
And
telling me.
and do you-
She was right on the
Shall I
front row.
move to adjourn? Shall I move?
They were right
Yes,
on the front
please.
row.
A second.
Yeah, yeah,
Before we waste good,
I move that we adjourn?
a second.
all right. Yeah, hearing, no objections, we stand adjourned.